Hello everyone. The idea behind this video is to help you improve your English listening and pronunciation skills. Try to pause after each sentence and repeat it. Today's video tells the story of a photographer who discovered that her grandmother had been keeping secrets for decades. A discovery that changed everything. A revelation that shook 3 generations of women. And that transformed a marriage that seemed perfect. What she found in the old letters went far beyond what any family could have imagined. Ready for the story. My name is Clara. I'm 32 years old. I've lived in New York for 5 years. I work as a freelance photographer, but I always felt that something was missing in my art. Something deeper. I was organizing Grandma Helena's apartment when I found the letters. Grandma died last week at the age of 89, after a life that we all considered simple and predictable. The drawer of the old desk jammed when I tried to open it. I forced it a little. The bottom of the drawer gave way, and a pile of yellowed envelopes fell to the floor. More than 50 letters. They weren't ordinary letters. They had my name written in careful handwriting, all addressed to me. Written over decades. Some dated back to before I was even born. Grandma had been writing to me in secret my whole life. My life until then had followed a comfortable routine. Married to David for 3 years. We had breakfast together every morning at 7 o'clock sharp. David always carefully packed my equipment before I left for work. The routine was our anchor in the chaos of New York. David made scrambled eggs to the same degree of doneness every morning. I made strong coffee, just the way we both liked it. David kissed my forehead before leaving for his law firm. On weekends, we walked in Central Park, always taking the same route. But those letters changed everything forever. I sat on the cold floor of Grandma's apartment and opened the first letter. It was dated March 1985. I didn't even exist yet. I read my grandmother's words. My dear Clara, you haven't been born yet, but I already know you will be special. Your mother doesn't understand my choices. She wants me to be a well-behaved widow. Maybe one day you will understand that living truly is more important than living with approval. My mother always told me that Grandma Helena was an exemplary housewife. She was widowed at 40 when Grandpa died in a car accident. She had lived alone in the same apartment for 50 years. She tended the garden on the balcony. She baked cornmeal cakes for the whole neighborhood. It was all a lie. Or at least, only a small part of the truth. I opened the second letter with my heart racing. There was a black and white photo attached with yellow tape. Grandma Helena was young, wearing an elegant men's tuxedo. Next to her was a blonde woman in a dress, smiling radiantly. The two were hugging intimately. The woman was holding my grandmother's left hand, where a ring I had never seen before sparkled. My heart almost stopped when I read, Clara, this is Margaret Walsh, my great love for 30 years. Your mother grew up living with us, but she never knew the truth. No one knew. It was too dangerous at that time. 30 years. My grandmother had a partner for 3 whole decades. They lived a secret relationship their entire lives. My mother grew up thinking that Aunt Margaret was just Grandma's best friend and neighbor. David came home that night and found me on the floor of our living room. Letters were scattered everywhere. I was crying uncontrollably, still holding the photo of Grandma in her tuxedo. I heard David ask worriedly, Clara, what happened? Are you okay? I showed David the letters, unable to speak properly. David read them silently, picking up one letter after another. Then he put his hand on my shoulder and hugged me. I heard David say in a soft voice, "Your grandmother was very brave for her time." I managed to say between sobs, "My mother will be shocked. She has no idea about any of this." David asked carefully, "Are you going to tell her everything?" That simple question haunted me for days and nights. The following week, I searched every corner of Grandma's apartment and found more hidden letters. I discovered that Grandma Helena painted pictures in secret. She had exhibitions in small galleries using the pseudonym H. Santos. She sold her works and supported the household with this income. I read a letter from 1995 that said, "Clara, art is the only true freedom we have. Never let anyone tell you that you can't create what your heart tells you to. Your mother always wanted me to be normal and respectable. Normal is a gilded cage, my dear." I began to see my mother in a different light. I began to question who I really was. David immediately noticed my change in behavior. I spent hours on the computer researching Grandma Helena on the internet, looking for traces of Margaret Walsh. One morning I heard David say, "Clara, you're obsessed with these letters." I replied defensively, "I'm discovering the truth about my own family." David questioned, "But the truth about what, exactly?" "Your grandmother is dead, Clara. The letters won't bring her back." I exploded. "It's not about changing the past. It's about understanding who I am." We had a big fight. The first serious argument in 3 years of marriage. David stormed out, slamming the door behind him. After 2 days of tension, I called my mother. I made a reservation for lunch at the Italian restaurant we always went to. I took only one letter with me, the mildest one, which talked only about art. My mother read the entire letter in silence, her face growing paler and paler. I heard my mother ask in a hoarse voice, "Where exactly did you find this, Clara?" I replied, "In Grandma's apartment." "There's a lot more." "Lots of letters." My mother immediately said, "Clara, for God's sake, don't touch it anymore." I asked, confused, "But why, Mom?" "They're letters to me." My mother replied with tears in her eyes, "Because some truths hurt more than they help." I realized that my mother knew something. She always knew. I insisted, "Mom, did you really know Margaret Walsh?" "Not as a friend, but double quotes finally." Mother whispered, "Margaret was special to your grandmother." I asked directly, "Special how, Mom? Like girlfriends?" My mother nodded almost imperceptibly. "Just as you're imagining, Clara." My mother began to cry in the middle of the restaurant. Silent tears from decades of kept secrets. My mother explained through her tears. It was 1960. "Clara, the world was completely different. Your grandfather had just died. I was only 8 years old. We needed his family's approval to continue living in the apartment. If the family had known about Margaret, we would have lost everything. Your grandmother sacrificed her happiness to protect me." I finally began to understand. My grandmother wasn't just in the closet out of social fear, she was protecting her own daughter's future. That night, David and I ate dinner in complete silence. The tension between us was palpable. I heard David say without looking at me, "You're completely different since you found those letters." I replied, "I'm discovering important things about my family." David turned to me, "Or are you discovering things about yourself that you don't want to admit?" The question hit me like an arrow. I stopped drying the plate, letting it slip from my hands. The sound of the dish shattering on the floor echoed in the tense silence of the kitchen. Over the next 3 weeks, our life became a silent hell. David came home from work later and later. I stayed up until dawn reading Grandma's letters. After much searching, I managed to locate Margaret Walsh. She was still alive, at 85 in a nursing home in Queens. When I called, she immediately agreed to see me. When Margaret saw me for the first time, her eyes filled with tears. I heard Margaret say in an emotional voice, "My God, you look just like Helena when she was young." The same green eyes, the same way of tilting her head. We spent the whole afternoon talking. Margaret showed me photo albums I had never seen before. Grandma Helena was laughing genuinely, with a freedom that never existed in the family photos. Margaret told me, "Your grandmother made me promise something before she died. Clara, if you ever came to me wanting to know the truth, I should tell you everything without holding anything back." Margaret told me about the paintings Grandma Helena sold in secret, about the romantic trips they took pretending to be sisters, about the deep love that lasted 3 decades. Margaret said, looking out the window, "Helena wanted you to know that it's possible to live with courage, even when the whole world is against you. She said you had that strength inside you." I returned home completely transformed. David was in the living room organizing my photography equipment on the coffee table. Cameras, lenses, tripods, everything scattered around. I asked, startled, "David, what is this? Why are you touching my things?" David replied without looking at me, "You've been so distant, so obsessed with the past that I thought maybe you didn't want to photograph anymore." I thought about selling everything. I looked at my equipment. It was my identity scattered on the table, threatened with disappearing. I said firmly to David, "I need to tell you something important that I discovered today." We sat on the sofa. I told David about Margaret, about the discoveries, about how it was all making me question our seemingly perfect, but perhaps superficial life. David asked, questioning how our life is. I replied, looking him in the eye, whether we are truly living or just playing roles we think we should play. David was silent for several minutes. Then he said in a low voice, "Maybe I've also been just playing a role for years." It was our first truly honest conversation in months. We spent the entire night talking about fears we never admitted, about dreams we let die for the sake of convenience. David confessed that he deeply hated working at the law firm. He dreamed of being a musician, playing guitar on the streets. I confessed that I was tired of photographing weddings and commercial events. I wanted to create art that mattered. David said as the sun began to rise, "Your grandmother taught us something very important tonight." I asked, "What exactly?" David replied, holding my hand, "That pretending to be someone we're not slowly kills our soul." The next day, I talked to my mother again. I showed her all the other letters. I told her about my meeting with Margaret. My mother cried a lot, but this time they were tears of relief. My mother said, "Your grandmother was much braver than I ever imagined. And much more loving too." My mother explained, "Helena protected me from a truth I wasn't ready to accept as a child. But she left these letters specifically for you because she knew you would have the maturity and courage to handle them." From that day on, my mother and I started talking every single day. For the first time in her life, my mother told me about her own fears and frustrations. David quit his job the following week. He bought a used guitar and started playing at the Union Square subway station every weekend. I turned our spare room into a photo studio and started working on a personal project about women who lived with courage. The first photo in the project was a portrait of Grandma Helena that I found in one of the letters. I found the last letter hidden at the bottom of the last drawer. I read my grandmother's final words. My dear Clara, if you are reading this letter, it means you were brave enough to seek the truth about our family. Now it is your time to live your own truth, without fear of the world's judgment. With all the love in the universe, your grandmother Helena, who loves you infinitely. Margaret came to dinner at our house on a cold December night. She brought a small painting that Grandma Helena had painted especially for me. It was a delicate watercolor of Central Park in the fall, with the same golden trees that David and I walked through every weekend. Margaret said to me as she handed me the painting, "Helena painted this in 1994, a year after you were born. She said she was painting the future of you two walking together in New York." We hung the painting on the main wall of our living room. David played the guitar after dinner for the first time at home. Margaret sang old love songs in Portuguese that she had learned from Grandma. I photographed everything, capturing moments of pure truth. Today, 8 months after finding the letters, our life is completely different, but infinitely more honest. David plays at 3 different bars during the week and teaches guitar to children on the weekends. I finished my photography project on courageous women and got my first exhibition at a small gallery in the village. My mother started dance classes at age 58. Margaret comes to have lunch with us every Sunday. Routine still exists in our lives, but now it's a conscious choice, not a comfortable prison. David still makes scrambled eggs every morning. I still make our strong coffee. But now we talk about our wildest dreams, our deepest fears, our art, our real future. Grandma Helena's letters taught me that the truth always sets you free, even when it hurts at first, even when it scares you, even when it transforms everything you thought you knew about your life. Yesterday morning, I found David standing in front of Grandma's painting, looking at the golden Central Park on the canvas. I asked, "What are you thinking about, honey?" David replied without taking his eyes off the painting, "I'm thinking that your grandmother knew exactly what kind of courage you would need in life, and that she was preparing you for it even before you were born." I held David's hand gently. It was the same intimate gesture I saw in the yellowed photo of Grandma Helena with Margaret. Love without fear. Truth without shame. Life without pretense. The coffee had completely cooled on the kitchen table. For the first time, it didn't matter at all. I hope you enjoyed this story about courage and truth. If it helped you practice English, leave a like and subscribe to the channel.